Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
You recently wrote some things you learned from your husband's passing. Could you share some of those? You don't have to, I think there was 10 things. You don't have to go through all 10. I'm just curious, what were the big things you learned from that experience?
So every year I would share something, and I usually would share the story of strengths and perseverance. But this time, I decided to share the raw story of the spirituality and what was going on in spiritual plane at that time. Because that was a moment that changed or opened up or actually really set me up for my path in life. Because I had to know why, and I had to know what happens after death. My home became a space of phenomena. And I would see him in my dreams, but also anytime I go upstairs, the light bulbs would burst or the electrical will go up or down. And I remember it was me and two of our friends. We were sitting and having conversation. It was before the funeral. And it was my son's little bottle was milk on a table. And then it moved on one side. It moved like this. And I remember Eric looking at it. We're all looking at it. Eric looks at it and says, "Is everyone else seeing it? I just want to make sure I'm not crazy." Right? And so we're all just crying because all of us just watching the bottle moving. But I was so young, I would think, in an all spiritual understanding and form. I wanted to know what this energy is. I wanted to know why is he communicating? How is he communicating? And really what happens after death? That is where the whole hell and heaven made no sense. No sense. I'm like, if it's hell and heaven, like this is not the reality. This is not what's happening right now in my life. Right? There is just so much more. So I started looking in different religions and traditions and places. And I would go to church, but I wasn't getting anything to fill my soul up. And then I would go to Buddhist monastery and meditate with monks. And I started discovering my inner voice and the talk, and I would speak to the monks. And there are a lot of Buddhist concepts that really were speaking to me at that time. That's where I first learned. I heard about reincarnation before, but again, being raised more Christian or Orthodox, or something in that space, that wasn't something that I really ever comprehended or studied or paid attention to. And then it kind of started all coming together slowly and slowly. I remember I made a friend with a rabbi, and so I learned about the way Judaism works and how they think about all those aspects. And yeah, so that's how the path started opening up for me.
Mm-hmm.
I heard somewhere once that a woman must know, like the essence of a woman, which is so curious. Actually, it was a really funny story. I think it's funny, might not be, but it says that Eve, she bit into the apple because she had to know what would happen. Like, this is an essence of a woman, which is like, we gotta know.
Yeah.
And so even though it takes me into the whole other universes and spaces, I just had this desire to learn, to know what really is going on. Mm-hmm. And so yes, while it was very dark and I slept for so many hours a day because I just wanted to escape. I thought that maybe I wake up and I'll recognize it was all a bad dream. And it never happened. And I just dreamed it. So again, because I was a good girl, I couldn't go into drugs or alcohol or anything like that. So I found my own way of escaping. And it was through hours of sleep, right? 12, 14, my body would just shut down. And it did. A few times I would wake up and I'm like, did I dream that life or did I dream this life? What is the reality? Because I didn't know how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I had a 1-year-old precious soul. And I knew that I had to find my way back to life for him. Because it would be so unfair for Gabriel to lose mother and father at the same time. Because I'm just not able to cope with the pain and the grief because I'm just lost. And it's slowly starting having that healing process. And again, speaking with the monks and meditating and going into yoga, it started opening other aspects of spirituality that were soothing my heart and my soul.
Mm-hmm. I want to hear more about that. But first, how long was this after you moved to America? 4 or 5 years?
3 years.
3 years.
4 years. I'm horrible with life.
So 3-4 years. So not super long time. So here you are. You've made it to America. You've got the whole immigration thing figured out. You landed in Las Vegas to begin with. Yeah. That's where you met Reggie. You guys fell in love, got married, and now he passed away. I mean, it really must, because you didn't have family here.
No one.
So this is, it just strikes me as this is, every loss has its own particulars to it, and it's painful in its own way and everything. But you've got this, it just feels you've got this extra weight of being like in this country, and now your husband has died. Like that must have added to the loneliness, it seems to me.
It did. Also, I had no family. Right? I didn't even know how this funeral things works in this country. Right? I know how it works back home. Very different system, period. Systems are very different. Traditions are very different. But I'm very blessed that I have people that showed up, friends that showed up. And they took over some parts.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm very, very blessed with some incredible, angelic beings on earth who are still very close friends of mine. And they were able to help me and guide me through that process. Yeah,
that's so. I think that's one of the things that you don't think about. Like when someone dies, it's just there's the practical matter of planning the funeral. And I know that my dad died when I was 10, so mom was I don't know. Well, mom was probably like 30. Mom was probably 34 years old, and when your husband dies and you have 4 kids, the last thing you want to be doing is planning the details of a funeral. And so I remember just how helpful it was for her to have friends and family and church members and all that kind of rally around. My dad's brother, really pitch in and help plan all that. So that's even new for you. I mean, this is a different culture entirely.
It is.
Is your English good at this point though? Like you've got an accent, but
I could speak, but I didn't know those words, right? The words that have to do with a particular thing as a funeral, right? Because there is how you're going to have it. What are you choosing? All of it had its own name. I'm like, I don't speak that type of English. I haven't learned it.
Wow. Yeah. That's hard. Okay. The going upstairs and the light bulb breaking and the bottle of milk moving around on the table. This happened after Reggie passed away?
Yes.
Was this ever happening before he died?
No.
No. Okay. So what do you think is with all that? Like what was behind that?
He was communicating to me. He was trying to speak to me. He was trying to say, hey, I'm still here. Was trying to show through as a spirit, you can, especially the electrical vibrations are easier to interact with. Physicals are actually quite hard. So it was a lot of phenomena just to get those things moving. But so it was the light bulbs, and it continued. It continued for a month. All kind of different things. So my house is a space of phenomena. I never know what's going to happen, but I also am afraid. I'm scared. I understand deep down within my soul that he's just trying to tell me that he's okay, that he's here, that he's watching over us. But also, this is so spooky, right? I'm like, I'm afraid. And so I remember I went upstairs. It was a month later, and I turned on the lights, and again, the light bulb just, went out. And I just sat on my knees and started crying and said, babe, I love you so much. I know you're trying to speak to me. I know that you're trying to communicate with me, but I do not understand this yet. And I'm scared. I don't know how this works. I'm really afraid. We will be okay. Gabriel will be fine. I'll take care of him. I will be okay. Watch over us. But you can go now. And it all ended. After that, everything stopped. Nothing else ever moved.